I'm Nikki Owen. I'm Head of Professional Practices here at Crowe, and we've started a 3-part life cycle of a partner, and this is the second episode, being a seasoned partner. And what do I mean by a seasoned partner? Well, that's a good question, because you're not a new partner and you're not thinking about retiring in the next few years. So I'm joined today with Phil Smithies, who is clearly, definitely a seasoned partner, because we were both made up at the same time.
We were.
And Claire, a colleague who specialises in private clients. So just thinking about a seasoned partner, you're probably thinking about the next step. Where is your career going? What can you do within the firm? It may be that the firm has a structure where there's a senior equity. So what do you need to do to take that next step? Who do you need to talk to? What are the requirements? Or perhaps you're thinking about you want to play a larger role within the partner group. But what does that larger role look like? How can you help the firm to grow and develop and perhaps take on some of those managerial roles that you see others within the firm doing? So, Phil, I know we both started off as equity partners at the same time, but what would be your advice to a partner, say 5-6 years in, and there is a senior equity pathway, but what advice would you give them about making that step?
So for me, it just felt like a natural progression, and I didn't push necessarily to become senior equity. I think for most people, it's about proving their value and their worth within the firm. And it's a bit of a cliche, but to think about not what can the firm do for me, but what can I do for the firm, if that makes sense. So it is about leadership. It is about the contribution that you can make. And that contribution, I don't think, just comes down purely to fiscal. So it's not all about fees. It's about how you can help in other areas in terms of raising the profile of the firm in external markets, how you can support the leadership team with some ideas that you might have to help drive the business forward, actually helping to set the culture of the business, so within your own teams, and that's certainly been my experience, and that collectively with your other partners helps that to feed through. So I think for me, it is about evidencing that leadership, evidencing that commitment to the business. I mean, you and I have been with the firm for a long time, and it's been, I think, a really good journey. It's not always been an easy path, lots of challenges along the way. But I think, you really feel the Crowe culture and you want to be part of that. And although you've got lots of different partners with lots of different skills, I think the importance of the whole partnership group, not just the senior partnership group, is having that trust and confidence in each other, that although you've got different skills and different personalities, you are all working towards the betterment, if you like, of the firm and our clients and our people.
Yeah, and I also think, Phil, that being as a partner for a few years, you shouldn't be scared of speaking up. I think you have a duty, don't you, to speak up and to ask questions, because if you don't, then who else is going to? And I think that's really quite important. So if you were mentoring or talking to a colleague, a fellow partner who was on that journey, what piece of advice would you give them?
It would be about how you raise your profile and support the business. So not necessarily within the sort of remit of what you do on a day-to-day basis, whether that's audit, whether that's forensics, whether that's financial planning. It's actually, how does that role fit into the wider development and wider growth aspirations of the firm? And what skills can you use that might help others within those teams to help take the business forward? So again, it sounds a little bit cliche, but when the leadership team want you to do something, so when the executive team ask you to get involved in projects, because they'll probably test and challenge you in a way that they want to see that you're fit for senior equity, just embrace that. It might take you out of your comfort zone. You've probably been out of your comfort zone quite a lot. I have. But just embrace that, take on board those challenges, and just really evidence your value to the business in terms of making that step. It is a commitment. When you're a partner of the firm, sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but you own that business. You do have a vested interest. Your point around speaking out is quite interesting, I think, in that that feels uncomfortable, particularly as you're going into senior equity, because what you don't want to do is rock the apple cart or upset people in a senior position. Equally, it's your business, and be right to challenge, be confident to challenge, but make sure you've got some justification and reasoning behind that.
Yeah, it's all about understanding, though, isn't it, in that respect? But it's not just about preparing yourself within your workspace, but also you've got to think of the financial side of it. And there's going to be future challenges. And those future challenges could be around bringing up children. They could be aging parents. It could be divorce. And somehow we have to balance that with our work life. And Claire, this is where you come in, because partners will have those issues. They will have those challenges on their funds, and they won't know where to go. And that's when they, hopefully, and what they should be doing is coming to us, coming to you to ask questions about their finances. So just thinking about a partner's finances, could you just give us a bit of insight?
Yeah, so I mean, partners are typically going to be receiving fixed drawings every month, and that's going to be for their day-to-day living expenses. So in that regard, it's a little bit like having a salary. But of course, there isn't going to be any PAYE applied to that salary. So most partnerships will keep back a tax retention. And that means that when the tax payments are due in January and July each year, there's already a pot put aside. So partners don't need to worry about finding the cash at that point, and that can be very helpful, obviously. When the accounts are done at the year end and the profit shares have been agreed, if partners are due any additional top-up at that point, that will be paid out to them. In their tax returns, they will, however, be taxed on their tax-adjusted profits, and that will typically be a little bit higher than the accounting profits. The tax reserves, however, should have been calculated on the tax-adjusted profits, so there should still be plenty cash put aside. If there has been a little bit of an under-retention on the profits, that can be trued up in the next set of partnership reserves, so it's not a problem. Some partnerships will also do a retirement reserve. So that means if a partner was to leave or retire now, all of the tax that would be due up to that point will have already been put aside.
So on the financial side, they've got really nothing to worry about as far as the tax is concerned. And I think you raised a really valuable point in as far as partners tend to get paid, they get drawings every month. And then there will be bonus payments that they will receive. And it may not be actually in the accounting year in which they're earned, but they are certainly taxed on it in that accounting year. When those payments are paid out to them, that will depend on the firm's policies. I know here at Crowe, it's paid out in 3 tranches, and it's all dependent on the cash flow of the firm. So, question for you, Claire. So if a partner is faced with divorce and they really have no idea what's involved, but they've been told by their solicitor they need details of their finances, can they come to you and get some assistance in that respect?
Yeah, of course. No, that's not a problem. We can always provide copies of profit sharing, projections for the future, and copies of their tax returns for previous years, and that's probably what they're going to need to provide. And we can also help them put together a schedule of their assets, which is going to be important in drawing up any divorce settlement.
Thank you, Claire. And Phil, have you got anything to add on that?
Well, on the asset side, clearly, with a vested interest, where we have mutual clients, so where we look after those partners of law firms, for example, then asset schedules, income structures, etc., we're able to support that process with those clients with any divorce proceedings.
Yeah, and I guess also when you've got a seasoned partner, there is that possibility that they could be thinking about how to spend some of those funds that they're generating over and above what they need for everyday use. So with these additional amounts that they receive over and above their monthly draw, I'm sure partners will use some of that perhaps to buy a second home, perhaps to upgrade their current houses. Mortgage references, I know, are always a pain, Claire, but yes, I know that we can help them there. But Phil, how would you help a seasoned partner in looking at their finances?
I think so. The challenge with any profit share distribution is you don't know what it's going to be. So it's irregular by nature because it's dependent on the profits of the firm. So you'll have good years and bad years. It tends not to be consistent. I can only really speak for myself and also my clients. But what I try and do is when you get that lump sum distribution is almost to try and carve it out into pockets for, first and foremost, having some fun. You know, you've worked hard. Your family have probably supported you. Actually putting some money aside for a holiday is pretty important. And then the more dull stuff that we help people with is things like ISA allowances, extra pension contributions, paying off your mortgage, but just thinking about what are you going to allocate to each of those, because that will help you in terms of your savings journey, but also to live your life to the full as well. So you're going to pay a lot of tax. You want to think about the tax efficiency of what you have with the net. But it's not all about savings. It is about also having fun. And one of the biggest challenges we have as financial advisors is actually trying to get a sense of perspective and say to people, look, you know, you've got a bit of money here. It is a bonus. Go out and be a bit self-indulgent, whether that's for you or your family, but do a bit of each. And that probably makes sense.
It's that work hard, play hard bit, isn't it, Phil?
Yeah, it is. It is. You've got to try and get a sense of perspective and have some fun. And, you know, I think quite often in this scenario, you can overlook the role that your partner has to play in supporting you. You know, whether they're working full time or not, it's quite long hours. It can be quite stressful. I'm probably not a lot of fun to live with sometimes throughout the stressful parts of the year. So actually, when the firm does have success and you do get those profit shares, actually using some of that to recognise those efforts that you put in and probably to be a bit indulgent with your family. So that's what I do. That's what I try to encourage my clients to do.
I know you, Phil, you and I, we've got a number of clients together, and there's one that every year I know exactly what we're going to end up saying in that meeting, and that is always spend it on yourself. What do you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, you know, life is not a rehearsal. There's not too many of my clients that I've sat with who've gone on like a nice dream holiday. We're going to sit on their deathbed saying, I wish I hadn't have done that. You know, life is for living as well. It's a balance that needs to be struck. But as a partner, you shouldn't forget to reward yourself at some stage along that journey.
So we've got a partner that's thinking about school fees. How would you help them in that position where they're trying to juggle their money and...
Yeah, so school fees, university fees, they will have to be funded. It's a very common question. I think for most partners, probably a combination of regular savings, starting early, and using profit surges when you have them. That's going to work well for most people. Things like university fees, you've got quite a long horizon. So I think you can start early, save gradually, make the most of compound growth. Phil will know better about this, but having a diversified portfolio, making use of all your ISA allowances, that will give you tax efficiency. As you're coming up to funding those university fees, you might look to rebalance a little bit and just to lower the risk. Something like school fees, if you've got a profit surge, you might consider pre-funding, and sometimes you can get a discount if you can do that. Or you might just put some cash aside. But if you're going to put the cash aside, then you need to be happy you've got the discipline that you're not going to spend it elsewhere after you've had your nice holiday, of course.
Yeah, it really dovetails into working with Phil and his team in the financial planning side.
Yeah, I think Claire made some good points in there, though, because the challenge with profit shares is they are based on the profit of that year, so they will be variable. And yeah, I've got clients who've got 2 or 3 children in schools, and 30,000 plus a year is not uncommon. So if you've got 3 going through the program, it's big money, and it's a long tail in terms of that commitment. So in those good years, to Claire's point, really, just thinking about how can I make sure that I've possibly got 2 years of school fees funding banked away, so that if next year we do have a disappointing profit share, I know at least I've got the sustainability of being able to make those payments without having to go and borrow.
We can't get away from pensions, Phil.
No.
And we've got to think about the future in that respect. But we do have this restricted allowance, annual allowance for partners, for anyone earning over a certain amount. So what is your advice to partners as far as contributing to pensions?
Yeah, so I think there's a few issues here. One is when you're promoted to a partner, you go from being employed and you're probably in the company pension scheme to being on your own. And that's quite a shock. So my advice in that scenario is for partners to have the discipline at the moment they become self-employed, that they start personal pension contributions straight away, because otherwise you just get used to your initial allocation with nothing going out and you don't make those savings. Really the biggest challenge at the moment, and you'll know this, Nikki, is that I won't know what I've earned in 2025, 2026 until my profit share gets disclosed in June. And as your pension contributions are linked to your earnings in this tax year, that makes it a bit of a balancing act, especially when you become a senior partner and hopefully your earnings begin to increase. Because the difficulty is, although everyone in the UK has an annual pension contribution allowance of 60,000, once you earn over 260,000, that begins to taper off, so that when your earnings exceed 360,000, your maximum pension contribution is just £10,000. So where we have partners who are progressing through equity points or just progressing their career and their profit share goes up, actually funding pensions becomes quite complex because you don't want to overfund, but equally you want to make sure that you're building your retirement funds. So there's some difficult challenges there that partners need to be aware of. And of course, the frustration is when you're raising a family and building your career, you haven't really got the money to put away into pensions. But if you start getting good profit shares, the moment you get good profit shares and your earnings go up and you've got the ability to fund your retirement pot, actually you then got a restricted pension allowance. So my advice, certainly for partners who just have been appointed to partners or are going through to senior equity, is really to try and put as much in as you can while you can, but just be mindful of what might lie in the future. So yeah, it's a bit of a jigsaw really, and a bit of a challenge, and that's where you need to take advice.
How does being a partner impact your work-life balance?
That is a challenge, definitely a challenge. I think it's important to be quite disciplined as far as that's concerned, because the danger as a business owner is that you kind of feel you need to be on call 24/7, and that can include weekends and can include holidays. So you need to cut yourself a bit of slack is what I'm saying. You work long hours. When you're on holiday, you need to be able to invest time with your family. I mean, at a personal level, I don't take my laptop on holiday, but I still wake up early. So what I will tend to do is I will deal with my emails between 7 and 8 in the morning, move things on, and then I'm free up to spend my time with my family. Now, not every partner works like that, but trying to get that balance is really important. I think it's become a bit easier since COVID and lockdown, where people have got that sort of, they're more relaxed, if you like, in terms of how they strike that balance. And it's not all about work. The work needs to get done. You need to lead. You do need to be on call for your clients, but also you need to cut yourself some slack and make sure that you prioritize yourself somewhere in there, but also your family, children, whatever.
My take on it all, though, Phil, is that you have to be honest with yourself, your family, and the workplace. Because if you're not honest, you don't give 100% to anybody. So if you're on holiday, then you need to take that break, as you well do, and But if there is work to be done, I think you have to be open and honest with yourself and say to your family, I need to do this, so that they know that your mummy, daddy is working, and let them get on with it. Because then when you've finished, you can spend 100% of your time with them. And you're not thinking, oh, I've got to get back, I've got to do some work, because that doesn't work for anybody.
No, and I think, and I won't be alone in this, but when I look back when my children were young, I missed sports days, I missed certain things because I thought work was the priority. And there's probably a better balance to have been had. And I regret some of that. Some of it was necessary, some of it wasn't, if you know what I mean. And I could have done that work some other time and could have got different priorities. I think sometimes you get very invested in the partnership and the responsibility that has, and forget that you're, if you like, just a normal human being, and you need to be able to have that confidence to be able to do those things that are important to your family in the knowledge that work always gets done. That's my experience. Whatever needs to be done gets done eventually. But just sort of get that better balance really between work and life.
And what you've been saying throughout this has been, you're a leader. When you're a seasoned partner, you're a leader, and actually you've got to set the right tone and example to your team. And if you don't, how are they going to feel? What are their expectations? Yeah,
but I think, sometimes working all the hours God sends is not necessarily sending out the right message. So there's definitely a balance to be had there. Yeah.
One more question. Phil and Claire, what gives you the most satisfaction? Work, on a work perspective, and also from a personal, home life perspective?
I've been with the firm now for 18 years. I've been a partner for something like 12, 13 years. It's just what gives me a lot of satisfaction is watching how the business has grown and watching how our people have grown, but still maintaining that culture within the business. And I think for Crowe and for me, and I'd like to think for our people, that's really important. And it's quite easy to lose as you get bigger and bigger. But getting people on board to understand what it is the firm's seeking to achieve on behalf of our clients and getting them engaged with that, I think it makes for a better people experience. I've got a team of 34 people. I have to say, they're brilliant. I think they're really passionate and engaged in what we do. And that's, if you would say, what's given you the most satisfaction? It's that. It's that sense of team. It's that sense of purpose. It's that sense of direction and all pulling together.
I couldn't agree more with you, Phil, on that, because watching and seeing people develop in your own team and in the wider Crowe family, it's really important. And it gives me great pride to see people reaching their potential in that respect, in all their different walks of life.
And, the plus point is, as the firm grows, that creates more opportunities for our people. So when I came in, I think we had a team of 10. So you'd hit a glass ceiling pretty quickly then. And that meant that if you wanted to further your career, you kind of had to go elsewhere. Well, we don't want that. We want to nurture talent. We want to give people opportunities. So although the firm's grown quite considerably, that does create opportunities for those people who've been with us a while, who value the culture of the firm and what we're doing, and who want to grow with us.
I think for me, the satisfaction I get at Crowe, it's servicing our clients. I think we provide a very, very good client service. I think that is from the partners down right through to the junior staff. Meeting new clients, I think, bringing them on board, just helping people really, I think is what I get the most satisfaction from at work, and I'm very happy to be able to do that at Crowe.
Excellent. If you're an aspiring seasoned partner wondering where your next role is within your firm, think about your goals, and I would recommend tapping up a few partners and having a chat with them how you can progress your career within the firm. Well, that's all from us now. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to the next episode.